Hello, and welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, attorney at law in the state of Michigan, where I've been practicing law for 25 years in the fields of consumer protection and lemon law. I often heard about this stuff from places like roadandtrack.com, and I've written a few books. So here to talk about when I sued a transmission shop before I was an attorney. Before I became an attorney, I actually went to small claims court and successfully sued a transmission shop. And it's fun to think about. It's one of the things that inspired me to become an attorney and also inspired me to sue transmission shops. Although I don't do a lot of that anymore, I have sued a few as an attorney. So I had a 1979 Chevrolet Monza, 1979 Chevrolet Monza, which I had bought from my brother. This is about 1985 or so. And right before he sold it to me, he had replaced the clutch, and everything seemed to be working fine. And one day I'm driving along, and I was stopped at a light, and I went to put it in gear, and nothing happened. And something had fallen apart in the shifter. There's no question that's what happened. But I wasn't sure, so I pushed the car into a parking lot, and I opened up a phone book. Look it up, kids. And found a transmission shop not far from where I worked, and they said, free towing, free estimates, come on down. So I called them. They said, not a problem. We'll go get your vehicle. They got it. They called me, and they said, yep, your transmission is shot, your clutch is shot, everything's shot. You need everything to be rebuilt, replaced, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. And the thing that caught my ear was the fact the guy said that the clutch was shot because the clutch was about a week old. So he might not have tripped himself up if he'd simply said your transmission needs to be rebuilt. But when he said the clutch is shot, I said, man, that's crazy. So I told my brother this story, and he said, well, let's go in there and take a look because under Michigan law, they've got to let you see the stuff, and they've also got to give you a written estimate in advance and a bunch of other stuff. But you've got a right to see the dismantled transmission if you want. The problem is no one ever wants to see that. So I called the guy, said, I'm going to come down with my brother, and take a look at this. And the guy goes, why? I said, we just want to see. You guys telling me the clutch is shot, trans is shot, everything's shot. We want to see. The guy's like, yeah, I guess so. So my brother and I drive over there. I can vividly remember it to this day, walking in there, and the guy had my transmission just scattered on a bench. It looked like it had gone off like a bomb. And my brother goes, let's see the clutch. And the guy looks around, and he goes, oh, here you go. And he picks up a random clutch off the floor and goes, there you go. My brother's looking, he says, dude, this isn't the clutch to that car. What are you talking about? That's not the clutch. And it was a burned clutch. And the guy goes, yeah, hang on a second. Where's the clutch? He walks around, he picks up another clutch. This one's brand new. And he goes, there you go. My brother goes, yeah, it's a brand new clutch. What are you talking about? It needs a new clutch. And the guy goes, well, we always replace the clutch when we replace the transmission. And I go, dude, you told me the clutch was burned. And the guy goes, well, I was just confused. I was just, whatever. So we walk over and we're looking at the transmission, which is now scattered on the bench. And he's trying to explain to us how this and that and the other thing need to be done. And my brother looks at it. I look at it. We're both kind of looking at it. And the front end of the case of the transmission has got 4 flanges on it. And the flanges bolts to the bell housing. And one of the flanges is busted off. It's like a lobe. And it's busted off, clear bust off. It's clearly been busted off like recently because where it's busted, it's shiny. The rest of the case is, got 6 years of patina on it and is one missing flange, and it's been busted off. And I look at it, and my brother looks at it, and he goes, hey, what happened here? And the guy goes, oh, that's not a problem. And my brother goes, but I was underneath this car replacing the clutch just a couple weeks ago. That flange was there. And the guy goes, oh, I know, don't worry, it's no big deal. We kind of dropped the transmission when we took it out, but that's not a big deal. He goes, we can put it back on with 3. You only need 3. Because we do it all the time. Now, at this point, what do? The transmission is scattered all over the bench. The guy says $600 to put it back together again. And if we take it someplace else, we got to pay someone else to put it back together. Then we got to pay for the towing because the towing is only free if you get the work done there. And God knows what else they've done when they took this thing apart. And the guy goes, besides, we've got a lifetime guarantee on our work. Lifetime guarantee. Well, whatever. So I go, fine, do it. So I scrape up the money. A couple days later, they go, your transmission's fixed. Come on, get your car. I walk out. I get in the car. I pay him. I get in the car, drive home, look underneath the car, and there's just trans fluid dripping out in a large amount. Okay, it's not pouring out, but it's dripping out very obviously all over the driveway. So I get right back in the car, drive it right back to the shop. The guy goes, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "The trans is leaking. Like, didn't you guys look at it? Like, didn't you, like, it was leaking when you gave it to me." The guy goes, "Oh, I don't know what that's all about. But you know well, hey, lifetime guarantee." He goes, "We'll be done tomorrow. We'll fix it by tomorrow." So I go home. Next morning, go back in. The guy goes, "Yep, you're fixed. You're good to go." So I walk out and I look underneath the car, and the underside of the transmission is just slathered with caulking compound. The guy took a caulking gun, one of those things that you do like your windows in your house with, and it just slathered about half a tube of caulking compound all over this transmission in an attempt to seal the transmission fluid into it. And I'm looking at it going, I don't think that's an appropriate fix for a transmission. But then again, at this point in time, let's see, I'm about 23 years old, 24 years old. And this guy's, got a lifetime guarantee on his work. So he must know what he's doing, right? So I get in the car, drive it home, climb underneath it. You know what's going to happen here, right? Transmission fluid leaking from it again, vigorously, as we say. And I'm like, okay, these guys are such knuckleheads. They're doing fixes and they're not even like looking to see if what they're doing, like, it's one thing if you fix something, you take it for a test drive and go, okay, it's holding. These guys were clearly doing repairs and pushing the car back out on the lot without even looking to see if it's holding on the lot. I mean, I admit I should have looked underneath the car before I drove it off the lot, but I thought there's no way they didn't look. There's no way. Well, they didn't look. So I bring it right back and I go, hey, sir, your caulking compound didn't solve the problem. And he goes, what caulking compound? I go, dude, I've used it before. That silicone-based goo that you slathered all over the outside of my transmission is not keeping the fluid in, okay? So I think you need to replace the case. And the guy goes, I think you're right. Okay, but we'll fix it. We'll fix it. Lifetime guarantee. Lifetime guarantee. So tell you what, he goes, we'll have it for you in a couple days. We'll call you. So my office where I worked was about a quarter of a mile up the road, and I used to actually go right by this place every single day. So my way into work, I'd see the car, my car, bright red Chevy Monza, 1979, parked in the dirt lot next to the shop. I'd drive by, it'd be there. At lunch, I'd drive by, it'd still be there. I'd call over there, hey guys, any estimate on that Monza? Oh, yeah, it's up on the hoist right now. And they wouldn't call me. I'd drive home, still parked in the lot. Come back next morning, still parked in the lot. Hey guys, any word on that Monza? Yeah, it's up on the hoist right now. Hey, you told me that yesterday. Oh, it was. Yeah, we had a problem. We had to double check something. So I actually started walking over there every day at lunch just to see my car not moved in the exact same spot, getting dustier and dustier, parked in a dirt lot next to a transmission shop in Clawson, Michigan. By the way, I wrote an article about this for Jalopnik a few years ago. I had several people go, did this happen in Clawson, Michigan? And I said, yes, why? And they said, well, it's the only place we know of that has a dirt lot next to the transmission shop that rips off people. It has for decades in southeastern Michigan. But I digress. So I would call them and say, oh, yeah, it's up on the hoist right now. And so one time when the guy said it's up on the hoist right now, I then went down, walked in and said, hey, there's your hoist. It's empty. You lied to me. You told me it was up on the hoist right now. The guy goes, oh, it was. I just put it back out there just now. But it was up on the hoist 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, okay. So what was going on was the guy knew he needed to replace the transmission housing, the case for the transmission. And he was trying to find one as cheaply as he could, probably shopping for junkyard cases. And he didn't want to go to the Chevy dealer right down the street. So he's looking around. He can't find one, or maybe he found one in another state, has to have it shipped. I don't know. But all I know is the guy was buying time. And it wound up being weeks, several weeks of the guy lying to me. It'll be done today. It'll be done tomorrow. It's up on the hoist right now. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? All the guy did was lie. It was just insane how much the guy lied to me. Finally, one day the guy calls me, goes, Your car will be fixed today. I'm thinking to myself, you've said that dozens of times to me already. But I went by the shop, and sure enough, my car was actually inside the shop. Whoa, miracles happen. And sure enough, they called me about 4 o'clock. Oh, your car's ready. I go down. I'm smart now. I look underneath it, and there is a different transmission housing on my car. Okay, so they replaced the housing, and I could see where the flanges were. All 4 flanges were there. So they actually got one that had all 4 flanges. When they'd broken the transmission case in the first place, the guy told me, he goes, your car only needs 3. And my brother said, well, why do they make 4? And the guy goes, overkill. You don't need all 4. Anyways, so I get the vehicle back. But remember now, it was weeks and weeks and weeks of this guy lying to me about saying, oh, it's up on the hoist right now, and blah, 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 blah. You need a new clutch, which you don't need. So I did 2 things. I filed a complaint with the Attorney General's office in Lansing. The Attorney General at the time was Frank Kelly, and he's known as being a good consumer guy. I filed a complaint with the AG's office and said, hey, look, this transmission shop ripped me off. They lied to me. Among other things, everyone I talked to said, you didn't need a new transmission. What had happened was your linkage had come apart. Because I literally was driving along one day, and I went and put it in neutral because I stopped at a light, and then when I put it back in gear, the shifter was loose. It was a linkage. It wasn't a transmission. It wasn't a clutch, okay? All they had to do is reconnect the linkage. It's probably like a $50 fix. And so then I also filed a claim in small claims court. And I thought, why not? You know, the guy charged me $600, and it probably wasn't necessary. So the Attorney General's office complaint just goes off into the atmosphere, and you never hear about it again for a while. But this one actually has a happy ending. But the small claims court was fun. I actually got a mechanic to come in and testify and say that, in his opinion, the linkage was the problem, even though he didn't see the problem, but when I described it to him, he said that. And then my brother testified and said, I put the brand new clutch in the car a week or 2 earlier, and the clutch the guy tried to show me was a different clutch from a different car, and he admitted it to me when we caught him on it. And so I then argued and said, I believe that goes to the guy's credibility. He's clearly lying to me, and they damaged my transmission in the process. I think I should get some of my money back. And the judge, and this is in Troy District Court, because Troy District Court oversees the area of Clawson also, at least it did at the time. And the Troy District Court judge said, you know, Mr. Lehto, I agree with you. I'm going to give you back all your money. And the guy from the transmission shop went nuts. He's like, all his money? He's like, I spent, money on this, that, and everything. I had to buy a new case. The judge is like, yeah, but you broke the old one. It's your fault. Judge gave me a full refund of all my money and basically said, it sounds to me like it was just a linkage repair. And since the trans shop guy would never admit that, he's like, and we don't know what that would be, so hell, give him all his money back. So I got a judgment against the transmission shop, and the guy paid it. And I've had people complain to me. They say, Steve, I went to small claims court. I got a judgment against somebody, and now I can't collect. Well, a judgment's collectible. You sometimes have to jump through some hoops to get them paid. But the funny thing was that even back then, I called the court and said, what do I do? I have a judgment. How do I? They said, oh, you notice up the guy's creditor's exam, and you have him come in and show you where his bank accounts are and so on, and then you can get a writ of execution against those things. And anyways, I noticed up his creditor's exam, and he mailed me a check for $600, which he probably got, by the way, by ripping off somebody else. So I got my money back. My car runs okay. I'm happy with it. I actually drove it for a while, and then I sold it to somebody else. And one day, I actually worked at a radio station at the time. I remember this vividly. And I went into work one day, and the newsman walks in. He goes, hey, Steve, he goes, are you involved in this Operation Shifty? And I go, what's Operation Shifty? And he goes, it's a news story that just broke on the AP wire about how the Attorney General in Lansing got so many complaints regarding certain transmission shops that they sent undercover agents into different shops with cars that had no problems at all and simply said, I think my car is running funny. Can you take a look at it? And some shops were honest, going, we can't figure out what you're talking about. Isn't things running fine? There were other shops that said, oh, no, you need a whole new transmission. You need a whole new torque converter. You need a whole new clutch. You need all kinds of stuff. It was so extreme that one brand new vehicle was sent into a shop that had nothing wrong with it. And the shop said, your car needs a whole new transmission. And the undercover agent said, I don't think so. Got in the car and drove off. And as they're driving away, the car's running really, really poorly. So they look underneath it. The transmission shop had pulled out that vehicle's transmission and put it up on the shelf and replaced it with a bad one. And they were going to, in essence, sell the transmission back to its rightful owner once they got permission to do the job. And you might say, Steve, that's crazy. How did they prove that? They proved it with the search warrant they executed shortly thereafter, where they actually went in and found the transmission, which had been marked up on the shelf, and a used transmission that ran poorly that was put in their vehicle. And after they executed the search warrant and found the goods, they then went after a bunch of these transmission shops, the ones that were bad, and fined them heavily. And many of them changed owners, and many of them went out of business. And that was Operation Shifty. If you Google it, you can actually find some remnants of it on the internet, although it happened long before the internet, but the story's out there. Some of the transmission shops actually filed appeals and so on with the state, claiming that they were somehow wronged by all this. And I can tell you that the transmission shop that I dealt with has changed names and owners several times since then, but they're still there. And I get a lot of complaints about transmission shops, and the stories all sound very similar. And the problem, of course, is that the average person has no way of knowing when their car starts running funny, is it low on fluid or does it need a whole new transmission? And so once they break it apart and tell you need a whole new transmission, most people go, okay, I guess so. So you can go ahead and give me the whole new transmission. So that was the undercover sting operation, Operation Shifty. I can't say that it was entirely caused by me, but I do know that my complaint was one of the many that inspired the Attorney General's office to launch the investigation. So it helped clean up the industry briefly, although I can tell you right now, it's right back to where it was before. So that's about how I sued a transmission shop before I was an attorney and inspired me to become an attorney. Questions or comments, shoot them my way. LehtoSlaw.com, LEHTOSLAW.com. I'm on Twitter at Steve Lehto, at STEVELEHTO. And this show's on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.